Hi, this is Frank with a frank opinion. I'm a little hoarse today, but I hope that my voice carries sufficiently. Today I want to talk about our defense budget, which I think is literally killing us. The 2019 defense budget coming up is $717 billion, which is over $100 billion more than the next 7 countries combined. The next largest is China, then Russia, then, Saudi Arabia. Gee, they're in the news lately with the Yemen genocide and the potential ordering of the killing of a journalist within their own embassy. India, France, the United Kingdom, Japan, all combined are $100 billion less than our defense budget. To put a little bit of this in perspective, our war in Afghanistan by the end of this year will be beyond $1 trillion. This war that has lasted for 18 years is against a country whose population is 35 million people, whose GDP is a mere $21 billion, which has the 25th worst mortality rate. Youngsters born today will not live to be 5 years old. That's what that means. They have the worst infant mortality up through 5 years of age. They're in the 25th worst in the world. By the way, they don't live a whole long time either in Afghanistan. Their average longevity is 62. Our longevity is approaching 78, combined male and female. And actually, for the second time in our history and for the second year in a row, our longevity is actually going down. The Department of Defense has operations in over 160 countries, 4,800 installations, and they love to talk about it on their website, defense.gov. I hope you will take a few minutes to go to that site. Go up on the upper bar and click on Our Story. It starts with a little film there, and then it goes into how wonderful the Department of Defense is. Again, 160 countries, 4,800 defense installations around the world. What are the major contractors that get funding from the Department of Defense? These are your major contractors whose average CEO salary is $20 million a year. That includes base compensation plus additional stock options, etc. Average, 20 million. The top is Lockheed Martin. The reason why I have asterisks here is because over 90% of the revenue of Lockheed Martin comes from our very own Department of Defense. Seems to be a very wonderful relationship they have there with DoD. The next ones are Boeing, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, United Technologies. These are names that should be known to you. They've been around for a long time, and they've been at the teat of the Defense Department for years and years and years. There's a key concept that I want you to take away from this presentation today. Base budget. Almost any organization that has a budget is going to have a base budget. And normally that base budget tends to go up. There are very few managers, unless they are instructed by a chief on the private side, chief operating officer, president of the company, board of directors, or by a president that has some testicular strength vis-a-vis the Department of Defense. Rarely will a manager ask for less money. They usually want more money. So I want you to ponder a few things. The first, what general is going to request less than the base budget? Is General Mattis going to say, I want less this next year, 2020, than the $717 billion that the Defense Department is getting in 2019? I don't think so. Any general may view themselves as less than a patriotic leader. Certainly they may suspect that they would be viewed that way in the eyes of the general citizenry, in terms of Americans. What elected official, what person campaigning for elected office is going to suggest having a lower defense budget than the previous year? And let me prove that point. The White House only asked for $686 billion for 2019. Guess what? Congress added $30 billion to that to make it the $717 billion. Do you think it might be because Lockheed Martin and United Technologies and Northrop Grumman came and had a few bagels with cream cheese in their offices in Washington and said, by the way, we'll give you a little bit more than we did last year for your campaign coming up, or for your war chest going into your next campaign. If you can squeeze some dollars out of there. Or it could be vice versa. The congressman or senator calling up that Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman or United Technologies or Bechtel and saying, by the way, I'm in a position to get you more dollars. Can you have that coffee and bagel with cream cheese waiting? And by the way, I hope it's an everything bagel. I happen to like those. So you have, yes, President Eisenhower said that we had to worry about the military-industrial complex. Well, it's military, industrial, governmental, and media complex, because it all supports giving the defense budget more and more dollars, adding to that base budget each and every year. Another concept that I want you to ponder: if you don't use it, you lose it. Now, we say that more often than not in a gym when we're exercising, doing this. But the same thing applies for our military. There's got to be a rationale. There's got to be a reason cooked up, whether it's the Falkland Islands, little bitty things that we got involved with, or whether it's Afghanistan for 17, 18 years with a population of 35 million, whose longevity is actually going down, where we had more civilian casualties in terms of deaths and injuries this year than ever before, or some other place. How about North Korea? Do you really think that Kim Jong-un wants to cut short his life and the wonderful life and perks and power that he enjoys by sending a nuclear missile to the United States? I just don't think so. There's a biblical thing that I'd like you to read. I'd like to read to you. Sorry, but this piece of paper fell. And it goes like this. Matthew, in 12:25, said, "But Jesus, speaking to the Pharisees, knew their thoughts, and said to them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself will not stand." King James Version. Abraham Lincoln used that same, a house divided against itself cannot stand, when he received the nomination in Illinois to run for the Senate. Russia and China, in terms of hacking, in terms of disrupting our elections, they don't have to have a $717 billion budget, because they have figured out, gee, our country is kind of a rectangle. We've got the eastern seaboard, we've got the western seaboard, and we've got all these states in the middle. And they happen to have strong political views that are one against the other. There are all kinds of things that separate Americans from each other. Not just race, but that being one main element, but politics, conservatives and liberals and progressives. And it's endless. So what do? They sow discord. They make us weaker from within. So to the extent that we don't invest in our own people, in terms of education, in terms of job training and better jobs and better living conditions, better wages, etc., and blowing $717 billion in 160 countries with 4,800 installations and over 2 million personnel, they know, slowly but surely, they weaken us. The last time I saw the news, I think it was last night actually, I watched the news a lot, I didn't hear of any military personnel amassing themselves on either the Canadian border or the Mexican border to attack us. We are separated from the rest of the world, lucky us, by 2 gigantic oceans. And yet we're spending $717 billion. Think about this, please. We can't keep on doing the same thing and hope to ever make America great.